Christopher Rufo, welcome to the program. You are the guy. You are the guy who has done so much work on exposing critical race theory, and showing it in our own government, which is really the shadow government kind of stuff that you would never think that the government officials are teaching other government employees that America is bad and systematically racist. But that's exactly what's happening. Donald Trump did a lot to stop all of that when he found out. It's all going back in, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. There was a document that circulated from a consulting firm that was mapping out the potential Biden administration's first 100 days. And the executive order banning critical race theory, unfortunately, was one of the first things they're going to get rid of should he become president.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, there's still a bit of debate. You know, it's a very a stressful period, and I always want to get all of the facts, all the information. To me personally, it looks like Biden will become president. It looks like he won, but I'm always leaving room open for new facts and new evidence.
But what does it mean if our government now no longer is even hiding it? And you have an administration that is as radical as some of these people are in this administration. I think they make the Obama administration look really kind of calm, quite frankly, in the things that they could do. But introducing critical race theory, not only in the government agencies, but Janet Yellen said that she is going to make the one of the goals of the Treasury Department to be about equity, to make sure that, you know, we have everybody is even and everybody is getting a piece of this.
Yeah, and, you know, the Treasury Department is probably the most ideologically charged agency, which was a huge surprise to me. But I have sources within the Treasury Department that say there is an agency, the Office of Women and Minority Inclusion, that bombards Treasury employees on a daily basis with critical race theory propaganda. They're always hosting events, including with former fellow travelers of the Communist Party that have denounced the United States during official Treasury Department events. So these activists that in the 1960s were in the streets on the outside, kind of pummeling the institutions that they believed were too conservative. Fast forward 50 years, and the same kind of people, the same ideas that were the counterculture are now in charge of our institutions and in charge of the federal bureaucracy in particular. It's a dangerous time and a dangerous moment, and I think we have to be one of the first societies in history to have a government that funds activists that hate the government, hate the state, and hate the nation.
I talked to some people over in London a couple of weeks ago, and they said, because I've always thought London was crazy, England was crazy, France was even more crazy. And they were talking to me about the reality on the ground over there and saying, you guys are way ahead of us. You're leading the world in some of this craziness now.
Yeah, we absolutely are. No, I think what you've seen in England and France and other European countries is there's been a kind of populist right that has been able to take power, to win votes, and then to exercise power in a way that would marginalize the opponents and marginalize the most extreme elements. And you see this throughout Europe. And I think, you know, looking back to the last 4 years, Trump's presidency, I think, unfortunately, was a bit late to the game. I think these things were kind of hiding in the shadows, were kind of sneaking around. And he didn't have the time or wherewithal to really put his foot down. And I think that any future Republican administration, one of the first things they have to do is do a top-to-bottom audit of all federal programs, of all federal research grants, and get rid of anything that is anti-American in nature. The president is the chief executive, and frankly should have the freedom and flexibility to say, we don't agree with these values, we're shutting it down.
Well, you would seem part of the oath to protect and defend the Constitution from any enemies, foreign or domestic. But I don't think they interpret it that way anymore, unfortunately. I don't even know if they even actually mean the words or think about the words when they're saying them. You said media political class street rioters spent the last year ratcheting up social tensions. You went on to say the ballots are still being counted, but Joe Biden is already declaring he has a mandate on systematic racism, and AOC is creating a list of people to purge from public life. Scratch a progressive, find a totalitarian. Time to push back. Christopher, what do you mean time to push back? How does the average person do that?
You have to stand up and speak out. And the thing is with all of these programs, all of these kind of hyper progressive, race-based justice programs, it's not just being fought in Washington, D.C. It's not just being fought in national elections. These things have permeated almost every school district and local government in the country, especially in the urban centers. And it's up to people to find out what's happening in their local school districts, in their local government, in their county governments, and actually organize and push back to publicize information, give documents to the press, raise a stink in public meetings, because this is really a fight. And the left, unfortunately, is, Pete Buttigieg's old campaign staff established a website and a database to track every Trump supporter, every Trump attorney, every Trump administration official, and they're going to go around and try to blacklist them from polite society, from jobs, from professorships. Conservatives are really being marginalized, and the left only understands one thing. The left understands power. It's part of their theory. In critical race theory, for example, they reduce all kind of positive values to a kind of camouflage for naked power. So this isn't something we can debate intellectually. We actually have to create a ballast or a counterweight that can push back in a form of organized power, because that's the only thing that's going to stop them.
Do you think you're on that list?
Yeah, I probably am on the list, but I have, fortunately, great supporters, great employers, and I'm a man of the political right, so this comes with the territory. It doesn't actually bother me to be on that kind of list. But I think of a lot of people that I know who are corporate employees or tech employees or even just average citizens that are terrified to speak out. I mean, if you are a conservative Republican, just voicing your opinion right now is a kind of dangerous act. And I feel for all those people, and I try to be a voice for them and try to give them courage to stand up for what they believe in.
So the only time I've experienced that is when I worked at CNN. I have been blessed enough to work in companies that, supported both sides. And since 2000, I've owned my own company. So, what am I going to do? Out myself as some sort of hate monger? But I can't imagine what it is like to work in some of these companies. And it is only going to get worse with the Treasury Department now saying, the boardrooms have to have this certain kind of makeup, et cetera, et cetera. They are not going on merit. They are going on gender and race. And the average person, I know a good friend of mine is an architect, and he said he was listening to his company come out with all these things. He didn't say anything. The guy next to him didn't say anything because they would have been, fired. But so what do they do? Do you just lose your job?
Well, one thing that I'm going to be working on this coming year is to actually find to establish some case law. So I'm working with some legal partners to try to find a case in corporate or in the government, any kind of employer, to establish that a lot of these things are not only kind of distasteful and wrong, but they're actually illegal. They're actually a violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which is kind of offering demeaning stereotypes of people based on race or sex. So I think one thing we can do in the next year or two is create a disincentive for companies to do this. And you could say, hey, this is now actually a legal risk. Doing this could actually be a violation of the law. And I think corporations are not doing this out of any great conviction. They're doing this essentially as an insurance policy to prevent activists from lambasting them as racist, capitalist overlords. They're appeasing the activist left on cultural matters to protect their economic interests on financial matters. And I think what we have to do is really now raise the cost of doing this, because right now they pay no cost for telling, half or 2/3 of their employees that they're internalized white supremacists.
Right.
But if we can establish and win a case to establish new case law that this is actually illegal, I think that will change the game in corporations quite rapidly.
Are you familiar with the Great Reset?
I am, I've seen the memes. Yeah, I'm familiar with the Great Reset.
It is, when you look at their own words and even the words of John Kerry, who just last week told the Economic Forum that, as climate czar, he is going to be able to really move this forward. And they asked if they were expecting too much from a Biden administration on the Great Reset. And he said, no, it's definitely going to happen at a larger scale and more breathtaking than most people really understand. That's a little frightening.
Yeah, it is. And I think it really underscores the extreme importance of winning those 2 Georgia Senate races. Because if we can create a kind of safety valve or a kind of preventer in the Senate, I think that will go a long way towards kind of crushing any large-scale changes. But, they're always going to hammer away at this stuff, and they believe in it. A lot of these folks, and I went to the schools and palled around with some of these folks earlier in my life. They're more comfortable in kind of international elite education events than they would be in Youngstown, Ohio, or Memphis, Tennessee, or Stockton, California. And I think a lot of it is they really have just a limited understanding of how Americans live, what Americans value, and how life is outside of some kind of prestige global cities. So I think these things, everyone is talking a big game during a new administration, but I think as these plans are exposed to the public, as details come forward, you're going to see Americans putting their foot down and say, we don't want this. This isn't consonant with our values, and it has to stop.
Christopher Rufo, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear your wife is doing better. Is she over COVID now?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, she had a hell of a battle with COVID and was in the hospital, but now she's home and doing a lot better and hopes to get back to normal life in the next couple days.
Good. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn.
God bless.
All right.